Orion itself has 330 cubic feet of habitable volume. That's about the size of 2 minivans and is 60% more cubic volume than the Apollo spacecraft. We are standing by for the Integrity crew aboard Orion to surpass the Apollo 13 record.
Integrity crew, on April 15, 1970, during the Apollo 13 mission, 3 explorers set the record for the farthest distance humans have ever traveled from our home planet. At that time, over 55 years ago, Lovell, Swigert, and Hayes flew 248,655 statute miles away from Earth. Today, for all humanity, you're pushing beyond that frontier. Integrity, over to you.
Yeah, from the cabin of Integrity here as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth. We do so in honoring the extraordinary efforts and feats of our predecessors in human space exploration. We will continue our journey even further into space before Mother Earth succeeds in pulling us back to everything that we hold dear. But we, most importantly, choose this moment to challenge this generation and in the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
Thank you, Integrity, and congratulations to you and the rest of the Artemis II team.
Thank you, Houston. We have a couple more things we'd like to take this moment for. Our science team helped us out with a couple of relatively fresh craters on the moon that have not been previously named, and our crew would like to propose a couple of potential names for those items or those areas. And we spent a bit of time this morning looking out the window, and we're able to see them now both with our naked eye and through the long lens, and so we feel this is a good time to send this down, and a special shout out to Kelsey for helping us with this. The first one we'd like to suggest is a named crater in honor of our great spacecraft, Integrity. And so if you were to look at Orientale on the far side and then draw a line straight up to Ohm on the far side, relatively in the middle is an unnamed crater, and we would like to suggest it be called Integrity in the future. And the second one, and especially meaningful for this crew, is a number of years ago we started this journey in our close-knit astronaut family, and we lost a loved one. And there's a feature in a really neat place on the moon, and it is on the near side, far side boundary. In fact, it's just on the near side of that boundary, and so at certain times of the moon's transit around Earth, we will be able to see this from Earth. And so we lost a loved one. Her name was Carol, the spouse of Reed, the mother of Katie and Ellie. And if you want to find this one, you look at Glushko, and it's just to the northwest of that, at the same latitude as Ohm, and it's a bright spot on the moon. And we would like to call it Carol, and you spell that C-A-R-R-O-L-L.
Integrity and Carroll Crater. Loud and clear. Thank you.
As the Artemis II crew passed the record set by Apollo 13 for the farthest humans to ever fly from Earth at 12:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 p.m. Eastern Time, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen shared.
We're getting ourselves all put back together now, and we are going to dim the cabin lights and prepare for our science objectives ahead. Thank you.
Sounds good. We're doing the same down here, and you are maneuvering to your observation attitude.
As we pass that Apollo 13 record of the furthest humans to ever fly from Earth at 12:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 p.m. Eastern Time, the Artemis II crew shared some poignant words, specifically Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The crew also called down 2 craters not yet named that they would like to name. One, Integrity, in honor of their spacecraft, which they have named. That's near the Ohm crater. Another near Glushko, which is a bright spot, named Carroll, in memory of Reed Wiseman's wife. There was a moment of silence here in Mission Control Houston. And now the team and the Artemis II crew are ready to begin their lunar flyby. We are 4 days, 19 hours, 31 minutes mission elapsed time of the flight of Artemis II, our 4 astronauts aboard Orion. Today is our lunar flyby day. The spacecraft is currently about 12,000 miles away from the moon, and you can keep up with the distance from Orion to the moon and Earth by visiting nasa.gov/track-Artemis. Or you can just stay with us here because we're going to be telling you throughout the day. They are currently 248,834 miles away from planet Earth. Coming up next on the crew's timeline today will be their cabin configuration portion. You heard some calls down to Science Officer Dr. Kelsey Young earlier about how they have configured the cabin so far. This is just a little bit more of timelined activity for them if they need to further do so. On flight day 3, the crew had time on their schedule allotted for configuring the spacecraft cabin for how they intended to arrange it today. Of course, they had to take down that configuration for another test yesterday of their Orion crew survival system suits. But configuring it on flight day 3 allows them the opportunity to get a chance to see what works for them now that they are in the microgravity environment. Again, the crew is about to begin their cabin configuration portion of their timeline, though they have been working that already, as well as potentially during their post-sleep period this morning. The official lunar flyby observations are slated to begin in just about 40 minutes. That's when we'll have the crew at the windows photographing the moon, as well as making calls down about what they are seeing. And we are live here in Artemis Mission Control for the duration of the flyby. Currently, the Orbit 1 flight control team is on console. This room is staffed 24/7 from the time before the astronauts step foot on the rocket until the time they are splashed down and are safely recovered in the Pacific Ocean on flight day 10. Again, this is Artemis Mission Control here in Houston. We are now 11,777 miles away from the moon. We did pass the Apollo 13 record of farthest humans away from Earth at 12:57 p.m. Central Time, 1:57 p.m. Eastern Time. That distance, 248,655 statute miles from the Earth, continuing to be exceeded by the crew. They will reach their farthest distance from the Earth around 6:07 p.m. Central Time. At that time, they will be in an LOS, or a loss of signal, with us on Earth, as they'll be flying behind the moon. Inside the cabin today, the lunar targeting package is the primary tool guiding the crew observations and consists of two key components. The Lunar Geography Review helped the astronauts study major lunar features in advance and help learn how to orient themselves during the flyby. Because, of course, the moon is not actually labeled like it appears here when we look at this map. The lunar targeting plan provides a detailed timeline of observation targets, background science context, and specific instructions for the pictures the crew should take, as well as the verbal descriptions that will be helpful to the science team reviewing them later. This is a screenshot from their lunar targeting package, and a screenshot specifically of that lunar...
Integrity for attitude.
Go ahead.
Hey, Jenny. Understanding we are in final attitude now for the lunar flyby, would it be possible to pitch the vehicle down 5 degrees? That would allow us to get the D5 long lens flush and have the least amount of window distortion.
We're checking.
That call from Christina Cook, NASA astronaut and mission specialist on Artemis II.
Copy.
The Orion...
Yeah, Victor, we're assuming you're talking about, kind of if you're looking at the Terminator, it's basically like 70% down from the North Pole. Is that where you're looking?
Contact, yes, that is where I'm looking.
Integrity Houston, that is an enabled caution for wastewater dump required. We have hit our limit. As expected, no crew action.
Copy, no crew action.
You are...
And integrity science, we're trying to figure out what you're looking at there. Is it like right on the Terminator, or is it in the illuminated portion next to the Terminator?
While we wait for a response from the crew, the Terminator is that difference between day and night, or brightness and darkness, that you see on the moon. We see this from the International Space Station as well, looking down at Earth.
And science from integrity, excuse my space orientation adaptation. If you draw a line between Glushko through the center of Oriental, and then another line from Glushko through the southern tangent of Oriental, that line would almost perfectly intersect tangentially the crater that I'm talking about, and it is on the Terminator. So yeah, I think I'm not looking at the South Pole. I was a little twisted.
That line description was really helpful. I have eyes on the SIR right now, and they are actively discussing lunar geography. We will be back with you shortly.
You're hearing a couple voices today in Mission Control Houston. One of those is Dr. Kelsey Young.
Integrity Science, we believe that's Zeeman Crater.
Oh, I floated away from the speaker. Say it again, please.
We believe that that is Zeeman Crater.
Zeeman. Okay, and can you say the first letter? I may be pronouncing that wrong. What's the first letter of that word?
Zulu. It's Z-E-E-M-A-N.
Copy. Thank you for that. Yes, we've got a great view of that. And when I went back to the window just now, the view has completely changed. Our trajectory is taking us to a new view, and I'm looking more into Vavilov. I've got a nice, great view into Vavilov. I'm actually away from the window right now, so I'm going to go try to give you some bounding words on the view that we're seeing, but I've got to get back to a window in a minute.
Understood, Victor. You're defining new views of the moon in more ways than one.
Again, when you hear calls down to science or from science, that's Dr. Kelsey Young, the Artemis Science Flight Operations Lead here at a console in Mission Control. You also hear communications with the crew from Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jenny Gibbons. She is the Capcom for today. She is a backup Artemis II crew member. Those calls from pilot Victor Glover asking about a feature he was seeing, specifically a crater on the moon. Meanwhile, the team here in the science evaluation room was actively working together to determine what feature he was describing. The teams at the window have continued to move through their targets, including Ohm, Aristarchus Plateau, Reiner Gamma, and we are preparing for the cabin and window teams to swap. That's when we'll hear more from Reed Wiseman and Jeremy Hansen when they take on these support roles, while Christina Cook and Victor Glover are at the windows photographing and annotating. As we briefly mentioned, if you look towards the right side of the moon, essentially, this live view coming from a camera outside the Orion spacecraft, and if you look on the right side of the moon where you see those dark patches.
Wow, yeah, I wish I had some more time to just sit here and describe what I'm seeing, but the Terminator right now is just fantastic. It is the most rugged that I've seen it. From a lighting perspective, there are little islands. There are islands of terrain out there that are completely surrounded by darkness, which indicates some real variation in terrain. Up to the north, there is a very nice double crater. It looks like a snowman sitting there, in the 5-10 degrees below the pole in the Terminator. And then on the southern edge, there's almost like a hole. Looks like a hole, and it's the diameter of Vavilov size, just blackness, and then a wall of bright. And then it goes back to the black beyond the Terminator. So there's it looks like there's just a gigantic hole right there. 1 Babylon diameter east of the terminator. And as you go south, the terminator is not a nice smooth arc. It's just jagged. There's almost a 110-degree turn in the shadow as opposed to the nice smooth arc, again indicating some really interesting variations. And I'm sure we'll get some photos of that. And then one of the craters further to the south of Vavilov, maybe halfway down to the South Pole, is not only looks like just a deep hole, and then there's like 2 island rays pointing off to the west and north that indicate very high ridges and very deep canyons coming up out of that crater. So again, just some really interesting visual illusions going on with the shadows there. Like I said, there look to be islands out beyond the terminator because some of the things, maybe even a Vavilov diameter into the terminator are catching sunlight on the peaks up to the north and to the south. It's very, very interesting to see.
Integrity Science, oh my gosh, that was an amazing picture you just painted. I glanced over at the SIR video and I literally saw fist pumps in the air. Those types of observations are things that humans are uniquely able to contribute, and you just really brought us along with you, so thanks for that.
That's awesome, Kelsey. Did you get a SITREP updating you on a slight change in logistics for PCD use?
Christina, this is Houston. We did not, but we will take it now.
We slightly changed the PCD plan for the window observers. The 2 window observers kept their PCD. So in other words, the one at window 2 went to window 3, and the one at window 3 went to window 2 when they swapped rather than staying at the window. We'll plan on all observers keeping the same PCD for all observations.
Copy, Christina. That makes sense to us, and good plan. We are coming up here on a cabin and window team swap. Let me know when you're ready for a quick vehicle status.
A milestone worth mentioning that this day marks the first time in more than 50 years that humans will observe the moon directly, a critical opportunity to practice how lunar science will be conducted during future Artemis missions. I've continued to reference the lunar targeting package throughout this broadcast, which is the primary tool guiding the crew observations, and that consists of 2 key components. The first of those is the Lunar Geography Review, which helped the astronauts study major lunar features in advance. That also helped them learn to orient themselves during the flyby. The Lunar Targeting Plan provides a detailed timeline of observation targets, background science context, and specific instructions for the picture the crew should take, and verbal descriptions of what will be helpful to the science team reviewing those pictures later. That's what we've been tracking real time and what the crew is using right now to keep up with their next milestones.
Integrity Houston, 10 minutes till the LOS. We'll take a snappy sit rep from the cabin if you have one.
Okay, Jenny, that came, we missed most of that, but just a 10-minute warning, is that what you're saying?
10-minute warning for the LOS, and I'll take a quick sit rep from the cabin, please.
All right, cabin is still full of excitement. We've got Christina in window 2, Ike in Victor in window 3. Reed's actually been trying to get some images out of the docking tunnel. We can see the Earth and the Moon and part of the Moon out of the docking tunnel, which is pretty good. And I'm just grabbing some footage right now with our interior cameras.
Copy, Jeremy. We'd like to know what camera Reed is using and also the status of window 1. Looks like there might be a shroud removed.
Okay. Reed was using the Z9, and the T-shirt shroud is still on window 1, but we took the camera out of it. So maybe that's what you're noticing. But when I looked in there, I saw a lot of sunlight reflecting around.
Copy. That makes a lot of sense to us, Jeremy. I want to remind you, coming up on this LOS, it will take sit reps in the blind. And as more and more of the moon is in darkness, we will take any report you have on impact flashes.
All right, Jenny, you'll have to say again your last. There's a lot of conversation here, and I was on the other side of the cabin, so I missed all of it.
Look out for impact flashes, and we'll take sit reps in the blind.
Okay, impact flashes, sit reps in the blind. We got it. And yeah, just so you understand what's going on with window 1, there is light coming through the outer hull from window 2 into the inside of window 1, if that makes sense. Like I can see the inside of the vehicle when I look between the 2 panes of glass.
Copy.
You're getting your first live look at Orion, the Moon, and the Earth. Everyone in this picture. This is a live view from the Orion spacecraft. Currently aboard Orion, 4 crew members, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. And on the Earth, all of us, all of humanity. You can see the moon is starting to get a little bit dimmer as the astronauts are going to pass behind it. Now 6 minutes and 26 seconds away from that loss of signal. Again, we will be out of communication with them for about 40 minutes until they come around the other side of the moon and we can re-establish contact.
Integrity Houston, you are 6 minutes from your 40-minute lunar flyby LOS. From all of us, it's a privilege to witness you carrying the fire past our farthest reach. Thank you. Godspeed.
Thank you for that, Jenny. And thank you to all of you for allowing us the immense privilege to be on this journey together. It's quite amazing. And as we go on this journey, thinking about the NASA mission to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And as you've gone along on this journey with us, hopefully we're doing just those things. And as we get close to the nearest point to the moon and farthest point from Earth, as we continue to unlock the mysteries of the cosmos, I would like to remind you of one of the most important mysteries there on Earth, and that's love. Christ said in response to what was the greatest command, that it was to love God with all that you are. And he also, being a great teacher, said the second is equal to it, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so, as we prepare to go out of radio communication, we're still to feel your love from Earth, and to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth, we love you from the moon.
Houston copies. We'll see you on the other side.
We will see you on the other side.
Poignant words from NASA astronaut Victor Glover, and a little bit of a love letter from the other side of the moon all the way to Earth. Glover touching on the teachings of Jesus, including to love your neighbor as yourself. We are now less than 3 minutes away from loss of signal with the Orion astronauts. The Artemis II crew will be out of signal for about 40 minutes as they are on the other side of the moon, continuing their work photographing the lunar surface. And they will reemerge, and we will also get this view on the other side. Just about a minute and a half now until we lose communication with the astronauts aboard Orion on the Artemis II mission. Now 5 days and 6 minutes since their launch on April 1st. Again, we'll be out of communication for about 40 minutes. And this really beautiful view of a crescent moon and a crescent Earth. How great thou art. 30 seconds now until we expect loss of signal. And we have confirmation of loss of signal of the Orion spacecraft as it flies behind the moon. We expect to regain communications with them in another approximately 40 minutes. This was expected as their spacecraft is now out of direct line of sight with Earth and behind the moon. And this is a poignant moment as it's the first time in over 50 years that we have humans completely unreachable by anyone else on Earth. No matter how distant or secluded, we could reach anyone living on Earth, but while the crew flies behind the moon, it's simply impossible to make contact with them. This is a live view inside the Science Evaluation Room here at Johnson Space Center and just down the hall from Mission Control. This team has been monitoring the flyby all day as the team has continued capturing targets on the lunar surface. We even got to see this team in action as they were helping the astronauts identify some of the features they were seeing on the moon but not expecting. There will be a couple of milestones during this loss of signal. The first will be when the astronauts make their closest approach of the moon at MET 5 days, 25 minutes, and 34 seconds, when we expect they'll be 4,067 statute miles above the lunar surface. Their maximum Earth altitude will be reached just 2 minutes later, at 5 days, 27 minutes, and 39 seconds, when their altitude should be approximately 252,756 statute miles. Once those milestones are reached and we have confirmation, we will report the official numbers. Throughout the Artemis II mission, astronaut voice, images, video, and vital mission data must traverse thousands of miles, carried on signals from NASA's powerful communications systems, the Near Space Network and the Deep Space Network. Let's learn a little bit more. Again, we are standing by to acquire signal from the Orion spacecraft. We're in the Artemis Mission Control Room at Johnson Space Center. getting our preliminary contact with Orion, that acquisition of signal coming after a 40-minute loss of signal, during which the crew was flying behind the moon, out of contact with anyone on Earth. We are getting our first views from Orion after the loss of signal. Orion has come back around the other side of the moon, and that little crescent that you see is Earth, over 252,000 miles away. With this transit complete, lunar flyby continues, but Orion has also technically begun its journey home. Right now, the crew are getting a few moments to enjoy and take photos of Earthrise for themselves, and we expect to contact them shortly. But we do have good signal coming from Orion. This view from inside the Orion spacecraft, all 4 astronauts now back on the other side of the moon and in contact with us on Earth. Their tasks for lunar flyby did not stop as they went behind the moon and out of contact with us. We anticipate during that time they were attempting to image some impact flashes, short-lived flashes on the lunar surface, which would be caused by impact bombardment and potentially even lofted lunar dust. Right now, of course, they are getting pictures of Earthrise. After this target, they will get a short observation break. It's about an hour long, actually.
Houston, integrity, comm check.
Integrity, we have you loud and clear. How many?
Houston, we have you the same, and it is so great to hear from Earth again. To Asia, Africa, and Oceania, we are looking back at you. We hear you can look up and see the moon right now. We see you too. When we burned this burn towards the moon, I said that we do not leave Earth, but we choose it. And that is true. We will explore, we will build ships, we will visit again. We will construct science outposts, we will drive rovers, we will do radio astronomy, we will found companies, we will boast our industry, we will inspire. But ultimately, we will always choose Earth, we will always choose each other.
Integrity from Earth, our single system, fragile and interconnected, we copy. Those of us that can are looking back.
We are happy to say we copy.
Those first communications back with the astronauts aboard Orion. Christina Cook calling back to what she said just before translunar injection burn, that with this burn, we do not leave Earth, we choose it. The translunar injection burn served as not only what put them on this trajectory to fly around the moon, but what also committed them to splashing down in the Pacific Ocean on flight day 10. At this time, the crew is entering an observation break. We expect this to last about an hour, and it's probably a welcomed break following their very, very busy day taking pictures, making annotations, making audio recordings, and communicating all of the wonderful things that they are seeing on the moon. This observation break is also partially due to the fact that we will be entering an eclipse later. This will be the first solar eclipse that humans have seen from the moon. The astronauts will need to wear eclipse glasses for the first 2 minutes until the sun is completely covered by the moon, and then they have additional targets that the science team is hoping that they will photograph. We will have communications with them during that eclipse time frame. Because of that eclipse, Orion's attitude must be changed right now so that its solar arrays are in the sun. This will help it charge the batteries needed to power it through that eclipse time frame. This view on your screen is a visualization. The spacecraft now 4,224 miles away from the moon, and that number will now continue to grow, while the number of distance from Earth, 252,699 miles, will continue to shrink all the way until our crew is back home. This is a live view from the Orion spacecraft on the Artemis II mission. It's now been 5 days, 1 hour, and 54 minutes since we launched. We are still in our flyby coverage, and the crew is on a short break right now as we have changed the attitude of the spacecraft to help charge the batteries aboard. We use the solar arrays to gather energy from the sun and store it in the batteries. That way, when we are not in the sunlight, we have those batteries to continue powering Orion. Now, we're doing so because the Artemis astronauts are about to experience a solar eclipse from their capsule. And this is a solar eclipse that no one else on Earth will experience. This eclipse is about 54 minutes, and to the astronauts, it'll look a lot like a total solar eclipse on Earth, except the moon is going to be huge compared to the sun, unlike when you watch one on Earth and the moon and the sun appear about the same size in the sky. We're interested to learn if they see the outer corona when the sun is fully obscured by the moon. And because of how big the moon will be from their perspective, the total phase of the eclipse will last nearly an hour. The astronauts will see a partial solar eclipse as the moon covers and uncovers the sun, which is before and after totality. So, much like us on Earth, they will have eclipse glasses so they can safely view that portion. The astronauts will also be using cameras to capture images of the corona during the eclipse. There also may be some other planets visible during the eclipse, including Venus, Saturn, Mars, and Mercury. If they can identify what part of the sky they're looking at, this can help train future Artemis astronauts on what part of the sky they're seeing. This provides useful knowledge in challenging situations when they may need to rely on that information instead of instruments for navigation and orientation. Confirmation from teams here in the ground that we have reached the eclipse attitude, meaning Orion is in the proper position to observe it. The astronauts' break during this observation period is now over, and we are resuming their lunar flyby observations. The first of these is sunset. This is the solar corona that we'll be looking for. It's the outer atmosphere of the sun. The science team is also interested in if the astronauts can see polar plumes. These are thin streamers that project from the sun's north and south poles. Additionally, they're interested in seeing if the crew can witness coronal loops. These are arcs close to the sun's surface. And something else that we've previously mentioned is lunar dust. This is dust from the moon that is lofted above the lunar surface and illuminated by the sun. It was reported visible by Apollo astronauts. You're getting a live look from Orion as the crew observes a solar eclipse from the moon. Again, this solar eclipse is only visible to the crew on the spacecraft. It's not visible to anybody on Earth. The science team is interested in several different targets for them during this time frame. And we're personally looking forward to getting those images as well. Again, during the beginning portion of this eclipse, the astronauts will need to use eclipse glasses just like we do from Earth to safely view it. Once the moon has completely covered the sun, they'll be able to take off those glasses for almost an hour. Totality on Earth during a solar eclipse lasts only a couple of minutes. So this opportunity gives them a chance to look out into deep space and to look into see if there are other planets nearby. What you're seeing right now is the solar corona. That's the outer atmosphere of the sun. And the science team is very interested in any images that the crew can capture of this. They're hoping that they'll take pictures and describe the visibility, color, and shape of the solar corona as a whole and its substructures, those plumes and streamers.
Science integrity in the blind. This is continues to be unreal. The sun has gone behind the moon, and the corona is still visible, and it's bright, and it creates a halo almost around the entire moon. But when you get to the Earth side, the Earth shine is already shown. I mean, almost seconds after the sun set behind the moon. You could see Earth shine. The Earth is so bright out there, and the moon is just hanging in front of us. This black orb out in front of us, in front of now, not the blackness, but the gray that blends and drifts into the blackness. We can see stars and the planets behind it. And Christina is in window 1, Reed is in window 2 with the long lens, and Jeremy is describing it in window 3, and it is quite an impressive sight. You can still see the horizon lit up brighter where the sun set on that side of the moon. It is bright, and Earthshine is very distinct, and it creates quite an impressive visual illusion. Wow, it's amazing.
Again, you're looking at a live view from the Orion spacecraft on the Artemis II mission. Orion is now 252,125 miles away from us all on Earth. We're here in the Artemis mission control room in Houston, Texas. And what you had just before we lost that view quickly was the corona of the sun peeking around the moon as the astronauts are entering a solar eclipse for this portion of the lunar flyby. We're now over 5,500 statute miles from the moon. That closest approach today was just about 4,067 statute miles away. And teams in the room beginning to get a little busier and filter in and out as we are stepping through a handover. The Orbit 1 team is handing over to Orbit 2, who will continue monitoring lunar flyby and all of the systems aboard the Orion spacecraft.
Integrity Science, and as you look around our solar system neighborhood, you should see Saturn setting behind the moon right now.
We do. We've been watching it track close to the horizon, and it's right tangential to the moon at this moment.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. We are currently 5 days, 2 hours, and 44 minutes into the Artemis II mission, and we have about 11 minutes remaining in the eclipse at the latter half of the lunar flyby that the Artemis II crew is experiencing on board the Orion spacecraft. We've received several different call downs from the crew and questions up from the science officer here in Mission Control. One of the things that they said that they were able to see is Mars off in the distance, and then the science team also confirmed that they should be seeing Saturn setting behind the moon. They've also acknowledged seeing several different impact flashes, and these are flashes of lights from meteorites striking the surface of the moon. They've also mentioned the solar corona, which is the sun's outermost atmosphere. Here in Mission Control Houston, the Orbit 1 and Orbit 2 teams have officially completed their handover. So the Orbit 2 team is now leading here in Mission Control, and that is being led by Flight Director Diane Daly, and the Capcom here in Mission Control will be Tess Caswell. And you can see there on your screen on the right-hand side is the Flight Director console, and Diane Daly is in the far right of that screen, and Tess Caswell, the Capcom or capsule communicator, is in the far left hand of that screen.
Okay, the light is continuing to grow in intensity. At about the 4 o'clock position on the the 8 o'clock position on the Earth-shine side. Saturn has set. Mars is tracking towards the moon's horizon.
Integrity Science, we copy, and we're starting to see it on the vehicle stream. Looking forward to any coronal observations you can share with us.
This is Artemis Mission Control. That view you're seeing on your screen is coming from the solar array wing cameras outside of the Orion spacecraft. And you can see the light starting to come into view as the solar eclipse period is starting to end.
Integrity, still no coronal structure at this time, just continue to grow in intensity.
Copy, Victor, and reminder, you still should have several minutes before the eclipse classes need to go on, and we can send you up a reminder when you're getting close to take your eyes away from the D5 viewfinder, but you should be good for several more minutes.
Copy, thank you, and yes, please send up the reminder. Thank you. Okay, we all think we're starting to see something. I believe the most popular term is baby hair. As the light grows in intensity in the horizon on this side, it becomes very distinct. You can still see Earth shine, even though the sun's brightness is definitely growing in intensity.
Love the description, Victor. I'm sure as the next couple minutes progress, more of those structures will continue to pop out.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. The Artemis II astronauts on board the Orion spacecraft are currently observing an eclipse. And to the crew on board the spacecraft, the eclipse looks much like a total solar eclipse here on Earth, except the moon is much larger compared to the sun, unlike a terrestrial solar eclipse where the moon and the sun appear the same size in the sky.
We are definitely starting to see structure. That baby hair is rapidly growing out toward the 9 o'clock and the 8 o'clock. It's almost as if it were reaching out for Venus or for the Earth. If you've ever seen the spotlight off the top of the Luxor at night in Las Vegas, this looks like what that wants to be when it grows up.
Integrity Science, glad to hear you're following your training of tell it like you see it.
So far, it's pretty symmetrical. There are 2 or 3 streamers that are growing in intensity and in magnitude, and it's slowly starting to widen, starting to spread out across the horizon. Pretty amazing view.
And Integrity Houston, great words. Reminder for you, we are approaching the brightness level at which you should no longer be using the viewfinder on the D5.
Integrity copies, and thanks for the heads up.
This is Artemis Mission Control.
And I think we're seeing some directionality. Some of it is going in different directions because it appears to be moving and combining and recombining as it moves. It's pointing in different directions, and some of it appears to be going like down toward the south pole of the moon, but it's and then coming back together and going out towards Venus and the Earth. And depending on how I stare at it, it looks like one large structure, but then it definitely has wisps, and you can see 3 or 4 structures inside of it. It's like watching a flame. It's like looking at a flame, and stand by. And so it has some inherent movement. Now there's a very bright spot. There's a very bright spot in the center of it. there's a towering light of. There's a towering light, and then there were like two streamers that were going 30 degrees out from it, and now it is just extremely bright.
Houston, copies all.
Starting to get a little warm.
And we copied all. We wanted to remind you at this point on the eclipse glasses. Should be about time for those.
Houston, we copy all. We are in eclipse glasses. That was an absolutely spectacular, magnificent experience.
Thanks for the report. We sure wish we were there with you.
This is Artemis Mission Control. The eclipse period is coming to an end, and we did hear that call up that the crew now has to put on those eclipse glasses to be able to protect their eyes for this final portion of the eclipse. And these views coming to you from the solar array wing cameras on the Orion spacecraft.
And Houston, if you could give me about 20 new superlatives in the mission summary for tomorrow, that'll help my vocabulary out a bit. Thank you.
We will solicit input from the team.
This is Artemis Mission Control. There on your screen you can see a live look inside of the SIR, or the Science Evaluation Room, here in Mission Control Houston, just down the hallway from the Artemis Flight Control Room.
Integrity Houston, back with you after a data rate change. Regarding the SAW-3 camera T low caution, no action for you. It just got a little cool during the eclipse.
Okay, we copy, and if you didn't copy my request for the mission summary to add about 20 new superlatives to help my vocabulary, I would appreciate it.
We copied it fantastically.
And Integrity Science, this is basically wrapping up your fly-by-day observations. I can't say enough how much science we've already learned and how much inspiration you've provided to our entire team, the lunar science community, and the entire world with what you were able to bring today. You really brought the moon closer for us today, and we cannot say thank you enough. And Science signing off, and can't wait to talk to you tomorrow morning.
To your entire team, Kelsey, to the entire NASA science team, you all really turned to when we shifted launch dates to April 1st, and you got the most incredible package together for us to go do some great science and some great great, truly human experience moments here, and we were well prepared, and we appreciate all of you, and this is what we do best when we all come together and work as a team, so y'all knocked it out of the park. Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Beautiful words, Reed. Thanks so much.
And this is Artemis Mission Control. The lunar flyby observation period is starting to come to a close following that eclipse. And there on your screen you can see a look into the Science Evaluation Room, or the SIR, which is embedded within Mission Control to provide science input. And they provided that input throughout the live flyby operations today. They also have a back room called the Science Mission Operations Room that processes data, evaluates imagery, and supports rapid analysis. And then, of course, we have the science officer on console here in the Artemis Flight Control Room, which you can see a view there on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. The science officer throughout the flyby operations today has been Kelsey Young, who is the Artemis Science Flight Operations Lead. And then to her left is Angela Garcia, who will be the science officer taking over for Orbit 2. And for the past 7 hours or so, the crew has been going through their lunar flyby observation period, and now they will wrap up that period and complete some final tasks and begin downlinking some of the amazing imagery that they've captured throughout the day, as well as some of the observations that they've recorded. And now on your screen you're seeing a live look from the Orion spacecraft from those solar array wing cameras. The solar eclipse period ended just a few minutes ago, and during this eclipse, towards the end of the flyby window, it lasted about an hour, and it was when the sun was hidden from view behind the opposite side of the moon from the perspective of the Orion spacecraft and its crew. And during that time, the crew saw a mostly dark moon, and they used the opportunity to analyze the solar corona, which is the sun's outermost atmosphere, while it was visible. And then once the sun was completely out of view behind the moon, the crew looked for impact flashes, which they reported seeing multiple impact flashes, and those are flashes of light from meteoroids striking the surface of the moon. They also looked for dust lofting above the limb or the edge of the moon, along with some deep space targets, including planets, and they noticed Mars off to the distance, and we also saw Venus on one of the solar array wing cameras early on in the eclipse period. The crew also looked at parts of the moon illuminated by Earthshine, which is the sunlight reflected from the Earth when they come around toward the moon's near side at the very end of that flyby window.
Integrity Houston, understand that you are still reflecting upon and consolidating your lunar observations. At your convenience, I have 2 items related to the upcoming VIP event.
Go ahead.
All right, first we wanted to let you know that the message for that upcoming event is on board for review at your convenience. That's message 3.06.04. The second item is that we've seen a couple of video blips in previous events. So during the HDPAO setup activity, we're wondering if Jeremy could please confirm for us that the TS rate is set to 1300 when you get to step 10.
Okay, Jenny. Yeah, we're pretty sure we've been in 1300 for all the PAO events. We've been tracking that when we swap between the HHP and the D5.
We copy, Jeremy. Thanks. And for the record, the phenomenal Jenny has gone on to her next appointment of the day, and you've now got Tess with you.
I'm sorry, Tess. Great to have you on board Integrity.
No worries. Happy to be here.
This is Artemis Mission Control. We heard some communication there between the Capcom or capsule communicator here in Mission Control, which for Orbit 2 is Tess Caswell, and the CSA or Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board the Orion spacecraft, Jeremy Hansen. They were discussing an upcoming public affairs event.
And Integrity, 3-minute warning for the maneuver back to bias tail to sun.
The crew on board the Orion spacecraft recently completed their lunar observation period. It was an approximately 7-hour period of time in which they were focused on several different targets identified by the science team here on the ground that they studied and prepared for ahead of time. And then they also were referencing a lunar targeting package that was uplinked about a day ago with those final targets. Now they are completing some post-lunar flyby activities, so they're working to clean up their observations that they've made and also working to downlink some of the photos that they've taken throughout the day. The science team here on the ground will then work to get as much data as they can overnight, and then there will be a post-flyby conference tomorrow after the crew wakes up. And that's not a debrief, but a science data collection to capture their nuanced experience while they're still in the field and the experience is still fresh. And then, of course, there will also be a public affairs downlink event later in the day, now that once the post-lunar flyby activities are complete. And then after that, the crew will go into some of their final activities for the day. They will have a private medical conference, or PMC, with the medical teams here on the ground. These are regular conferences that they have at the end of every day. And then there's also a flight director conference that they will have before they go into their pre-sleep period, during which they can complete hygiene activities and they will have the chance to eat their dinner and complete any other final personal activities for the day before they head into their sleep period.